Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Mid-Tier Thoughts. So today we're going over a little bit of a concept I've been kind of running through my mind recently with some of the recent events we've seen on the news and TV, especially coming out of Minnesota. And the scenario I'm kind of building this around is the idea that maybe you live in a city that's experiencing civil unrest, right? Now, ideally, your best course of action would be to avoid it entirely. If you can take the long way around and avoid whatever protest is going on, or go with the extra, take maybe the next off ramp, or go the long way, take a couple blocks to the right, circle back around. If you can avoid it, that's fantastic. If you can avoid the area entirely or not have to go wherever it is that you're trying to go where this is happening, that's the best course of action. But what if you can't? What if, for example, this is happening in a downtown area and you work downtown? What if, for example, this is happening in your neighborhood, or this is happening in an area near you, and it's an area that's unavoidable? You have to go there. Maybe you live there, maybe you work there, maybe it's where your church is, where your school is, something like this. For one reason or another, you've got to deal with the civil unrest. You've got to deal with the protesters. You've got to deal with the rioters. You've got to make it through there. Now, granted, that's going to be a little bit more dangerous for some than others, depending on the scenario and depending on the intensity of what you're facing. So I kind of thought about this as a way of what would we kind of want in a kit, maybe like a quick, easy grab bag from the vehicle, if you are in this scenario, having to deal with this type of population, with these rioters and these protesters, and you have to abandon your vehicle, but you want to make sure you have what you need in a bag that you can take with you and you can come back to the vehicle later. What would you need in a scenario like this? Now, this is not a comprehensive, every single little thing you can do, but just a way to kind of something to think about and expand upon to fit your own needs, and just kind of cover some basics, give you some examples, and kind of things that have been rattling around in my head. Now, again, this is not going to be something that I would recommend necessarily just having in a bag that you bring with you all the time. You could, nothing wrong with that, but more, this is specifically intended for, let's say you have to go to work. You have to go through these protesters. There's no getting around it. They're on the block where you work, and you have to deal with them. You have to go through them, right? Now, what would you want to have with you? And that's what we're going to get into real quick right after a word from our sponsor. Diefrico is today's sponsor, a made-in-America company that makes some awesome stuff for your tactical accessories. With packaging so good, you almost feel bad about opening it. Whether it be the Kung Fu Grip or the Tiger Claw, these things are fantastic. I'm usually not one to get excited about AR furniture. For me, I'm kind of just, if it fits, it ships. But when I got these things are pretty rad. So they've kind of changed the way I think about this kind of stuff. Whether we're talking about the 12-degree angle Kung Fu Grip, which has a nice little cutout here for your finger and fits your hand just perfectly, changing that grip angle to be much more comfortable, or whether we're talking about their 10-degree angle foregrip, the Tiger Claw, which when used as either a hand stop or a foregrip is one of the most comfortable ones I think I've ever used. I'm normally not a fan of the kind of the stubby foregrips, but this thing fits my hand so perfectly. I'm not blowing smoke, dude. Like, I got this thing and it kind of did change the way I think about grips, for sure. So with this, guys, Diefrico, check them out below in the description. Check out the code as well. They'll help you out at checkout. Go check them out. Tell them I sent you. You'll thank me when you do. Okay, so starting out, we've got a bunch of different stuff on this table, and I'll kind of go over my thought process with a lot of this. So let's get the first part out of the way. Over here, obviously you can see I've got an array of pistols. Now, ideally, you're going to have an everyday carry on you if you live in a state that allows, and you live in a state you have of the applicable firearms, right? Or you live in an area where you can conceal carry. This is ideally some of the options that I happen to have of things that I'm kind of looking at and how you would carry this. Now, some people are going to go to the steps of saying, well, what about a PDW, or what about like a pistol chassis system, or something big like that, right? Or maybe a 10.5 AR or a 300 Blackout. And while that's going to be entirely dependent upon your needs, can you fit it into a bag, things like this, I don't think that necessarily having something like that is a super big advantage in this scenario. Because again, our goal is not to fight off the angry hordes. Our goal is to just get to work, just get to or wherever we're going, ideally without being interacted with at all. But we are going through some highly contentious areas where we may face potential danger, right? Now, to back off with that, firstly, too, I would recommend that you don't have anything on your vehicle that represents any type of political statement, like bumper stickers, things like this. If you've got like the big back window that's, Trump 45, 47, whatever, on the back of your window, I'm not your dad, you do what you want, but I don't think it's the greatest thing to have to, be a gray man, or especially be in those type of conditions that we discussed earlier. Maybe not have, Second Amendment or Pro 2A or anything kind of stickers on that. I generally like to have as few identifiers on my truck as possible, just to not advertise what I'm all about to everybody. It also helps too with just if someone's trying to break into a vehicle, the odds are that they're going to break into the one with a bunch of gun stickers on it. It's pretty high because they might assume there's a gun in the vehicle. So just to get this out of the way so we can move on to the other stuff, for EDC, potential options. On the large side, especially if you're in a restricted state, you could take something like a 1911. 7 rounds of 45 plus 1 in the tube. This one's my Boomer 1911 that you guys can see on the video that I kind of boomerized with some Recover Tactical stuff and a aftermarket rear sight at a red dot. So something like this is on the definitely large side for the EDC. It'll definitely do the job. Some 45 ACP, 200 grain jacket at hollow points will definitely do the job. But again, our whole point here is we're trying not to get into a conflict. So if you are going to carry, I do recommend though carrying at least one spare, preferably 2 on you if you can, depending on magazine size. If it's 7 rounds, have 2. If it's some of these other pistols that have 15, 17 rounds, something like that, you can probably get away with just having one extra mag. And it's not so much that you're intending to use all of those rounds, but you never know. You could have a malfunction or an ammunition issue, and it's easier just to strip the bad mag out and load a new one in. God forbid it ever come to that, than actually having to sit there and fiddle with it. So that's one option. Kind of going down again in size, you've got the Beretta 92X. If you guys like that single action, double action, this is a great option as well. So this guy here, you can get the 15 or the 17 round mags for this guy, depending on the size. Any Beretta magazine, or Beretta 92 mag actually will fit in this. You've got the rail, obviously, for the light. I just have standard iron sights on here. But if you do like that decocker and having the single action, double action, this would be a good option for you as well. Then the ubiquitous EDC, my Glock 19. This is a Gen 5. I've got a Mariglow night sights on here, and then a Streamlight TLR1 HL as well. And this is my normal go-to carry gun, 15 rounds in a mag. You can go bigger, you can go smaller, depending upon where you're at. Other options are out there as well. And then if you want to go real small, this is actually my wife's. This is the SIG P365. This guy again here, 10 to 12 or 15 round magazines, depending on the mag you run. Red dot on here, great trigger. This gun's actually been working out really well for her. So I just want to get the EDC stuff out of the way because there's a lot more to this than just carrying a gun. And ideally, if we do this right, we'll never actually have to draw the weapon. That's the whole point behind this kit, is actually stuff to have where the weapon is literally the last resort. So now that the EDC is out of the way, we should also probably talk about how to carry. So one thing to mention too is ideally you're going to want to carry inside the waistband somehow, right? Whether that's, I prefer having it up front in an appendix carry. It's more of a comfort issue for you, but if you do carry in the small of the back or at the 4 o'clock position on your side, keep in mind that you might want to wear baggier clothing because you may print, and depending on that environment, again, we're talking about getting into a protest and rioters, that kind of environment, and you're trying to get through this to get to wherever you need to go, you might want to just be more cautious about how much you're printing. And by printing, I mean how much your gun kind of sticks out of your shirt and shows that you have a gun. Now, if you do have to carry in an outside the waistband holster, I recommend against it, but I would recommend something that does stick tight and close to the body. Something kind of like this is a Blade Tech holster, but something that sticks nice and tight to the body, and you wear some baggier clothing over it. So now the EDC stuff for the gun is out of the way, let's get to the rest of this. So again, we're talking about a riot style environment. We've seen, whether it's in Minnesota or in other places, tear gas, smoke, things like this are regularly deployed. So it might be advantageous to get something like a gas mask. Now this one happens to be from Parcel Safety. They have a variety of different ones. They did send me this a while back. I've done a review on this. It works out pretty well. I had my buddy spray this down and me down with pepper spray to kind of show how well it works, and it works fairly well, at least for the agents you're going to be experiencing in a potential riot environment. So having something like this in a bag, in a backpack, might be kind of advantageous because you can get through that area and you'll probably wind up blending in pretty well actually with some of the protesters that are out there. If you don't have a gas mask like this, you don't want to get into something like this, a respirator mask like you use for painting, an N95 mask like that to help you in that situation be able to still breathe and see and move on and get out of the area, which is the ideal thing that we're talking about. Again, the scenario, you're going to work and the riot's happening, you have to get through it, you have to go around it, and you're just in and around that environment where potential law enforcement response might happen. And because of that, because of the possibility of potential danger, you're definitely going to want to carry a medical kit. So this one is just a simple like medical kit you can get at any store that has like sporting goods. And this is just a sportsman's kit. It's basically a glorified boo-boo kit. This is not going to have tourniquets or trauma gauze or something super crazy. This is kind of just like your cuts, scrapes, standard injuries. There might be some more advanced kits that you can get out there with more advanced stuff, or you can get a full-blown IFAC. You could carry a full-blown trauma kit with tourniquets. I do recommend if you are going to carry a gun to at least carry a tourniquet and have stuff like that on the ready, because you might be injured or you might run across other people who themselves are injured and you might feel the need to help or to help yourself and get out of that area. Another thing to think about as well is again, kind of going back to your EDC stuff, your main mode of transport, your main means of communication is going to be your cell phone. Now, if you're abandoning your vehicle or go through this area, or maybe you've parked a safe distance away, but you have to walk through this area, it might be nice to have a cell phone charger, another charger, either whether it be something that's kind of solar powered or something that you can have already pre-charged, ready to roll with a charging cord in case you do get stuck where you're at. Potentially, maybe you get through the crowd, you get to your workplace, but then the police have to lock the area down due to whatever reason that the riot has gotten out kind of crazy, or it's not safe to go back to your car yet. You have extra battery on hand to be able to charge your phone and to be able to get a hold of your loved ones, communicate with people, whatever. Now, if you have the means to do so and you've established these networks or you're within the close proximity, having a walkie-talkie style system that you have set up if you're in close proximity to other people who have these, or if you're within line of sight of your home, maybe you don't live too far away, is another possibility for an alternate means of communication. Or having something like a Baofeng. Now this one with the larger antenna and the larger battery is pretty big, pretty obvious, but you can get the smaller ones that cut off about here, get the smaller antennas, something like that can easily fit into a backpack. You could use it as an emergency means of transportation. You can tune into certain channels to listen in only to certain frequencies and kind of get a feel for what's going on around the area, what's happening, is it safe to go out? Those are potential things that could be very helpful for you. Not only just like things like the National Weather Service, but potential like, hey, that sounds like the police are getting ready to lock this area down, that kind of stuff you can pick up on a radio. Again, look into the legality of all that around your area, but you can listen in and kind of hear what's going on and kind of have a better idea of what's happening around you. Another thing too, while carrying a firearm is a great idea, I do recommend that if you are in a crowd environment, if you are in a riot environment, if you are in a place where you are outnumbered, I do recommend concealed carrying. I do recommend that as a very much last resort. You don't want to necessarily go to the gun, especially if you are surrounded by a mob of angry people who have shown more and more that they're not necessarily scared of someone having a firearm. That's not really going to be enough for them. You don't want to be the guy who gets rushed or your weapon taken from you in that kind of environment. You can think back to the Nick Sorter video where he was walking around with his plate carrier into the crowd and he got drug into the crowd and was basically being mobbed and beaten through the crowd. You don't want to be the guy that kind of tries to go for your gun in that crowd and then gets it taken from you. So potentially having something like pepper spray, this is Saber Red. This is a really good option. So something like this, like pepper spray, would work and would be a really great option as a non-lethal deterrent that you could have on you that's generally legal in most states, and you could use as a self-defense tool before ever getting through to the process of lethal force. You could use something like this, and this does kind of have a area of effect, a spray, so you can spray multiple people. It does take a little bit of time to activate, so it's not going to be immediate, but once it does, it could allow you that opportunity that you need to make your escape, to make your getaway, whatever, and you generally don't have to deal with as much issues as if you shot somebody. So that's a great option as well for carrying something in your pocket. Having a whistle and a lighter as well are another great options. So again, the lighter is just for multiple things. One, if you're nondescript, and again, ideally we don't want to be wearing if we're going into an environment like this and it can't be helped, we don't want to be wearing a lot of overtly political clothing. We want to be as gray man as possible. even to the point of you almost want to blend in with the protesters if you could, make them see you as not a threat, right? So if you carry a lighter, even if you don't smoke, anyone looking for someone to help them light up is always a good, easy way to make friends and kind of bring down people's defenses in that way to make them think of you as not a threat. So that's a potential thing for the lighter as well, outside of just like the obvious survival things of starting a fire, signaling, things like that. If you're in an urban environment, the odds of you needing it for that probably pretty low. But on the idea of just simply being able to light a cigarette for somebody to help you get the hell out of there is an option. A whistle as well can draw your attention, can people draw attention to you if you are in danger or if you need help. Now, granted, if you're in a riot environment, especially with these like ones that we've seen in Minnesota, a lot of the protesters are having whistles and blowing these whistles and being obnoxious. So that can also help you blend into the crowd if you need to blend into the crowd to be able to exit the crowd. So that is another possibility as well. I always think it's good to carry a good solid pocket knife. So this one is a nice simple Gerber knife. You can tell I've kind of beat this one up and used it for quite a bit. Gerber here, or this is just like a cheap knife I got for Christmas. Something like this. It's a simple knife, simple utility knife that I can use for multiple reasons. I could also use it defensively if I absolutely needed to. Ideally, I'm not having to, but I could use it as a tool for a bunch of different things. For prying things open, cutting things open, potential medical usage. So there's a lot of good about having a pocket knife. You should probably just carry one anyway for the most part, as long as you are able to wherever you're at. This is a cheap multi-tool that I have with me in this kind of bag. I usually have better multi-tools, like some of my Leathermans and things like that are with my kit and with my other gear. So this is a cheaper one that I kind of have to throw in this bag. Also, if anything happens to it, I don't feel too bad about it. But it's never a bad idea to have tools on you because you never know what situation you might run into in these types of scenarios with pliers and different blade types, saw blades, screwdrivers, things like this. There's a lot of utility in having something like this in that type of environment. And as well, depending upon the time of day that you're talking about, this could be, especially now that it's wintertime, you could be looking at going through this area in the dark, depending on the lighting situation or what the response from the police has been to that area. The lighting situation might be kind of crappy, so it's always nice to have a light. So with that, you could have something like a simple headlamp to be able to help you find your way out of places or be able to see wherever it is that you're going, especially if the lights get turned off, shot out, whatever. So that's a good option as well, as having a nice simple headlamp, something that just allows you to easily kind of view your environment and keep moving. Having different functions like this is another great possibility as well. And then, or having something like this that looks like a simple pin light. This is another one from Woobin that I got recently. Just something simple like this. It's a little 650 lumen light. It looks like something a mechanic would have. It doesn't look overtly tactical. Something like a cheap little, I like to refer to them like a little gas station light, something that's good enough, but nothing overtly tactical. This little chintzy light here. It doesn't look like I'm some kind of tactical guru. Whereas something like this might kind of send more of a tactical message that, again, I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to look like just a normal dude. I don't want to give anyone any hints at all that I am in any way, any kind of tactical, practical, whatever. I don't want them to know I'm a prepper. I don't want them to know I'm anything about me. And if need be, another part of this too is if you are caught up in these environments, right? You might feel like you're kind of betraying yourself or betraying your values, whatever. Don't be afraid to blend in if need be to be able to get out of there, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like you see these videos where people are going around and they're like swarming people and they're like, they've got the camera in their face and they're saying, oh, denounce ICE, do it, do it. Okay, cool, fuck ICE, keep walking, right? Like, not a big deal, right? Regardless of how you feel about the situation, regardless if you're pro, anti, whatever, right? Keep on moving. You've got other shit to do, right? If you feel like that is you're betraying your character, if that's the case, so be it. And you can deal with that on a personal level on how you want to respond to that. My advice would be blend into the crowd as much as possible, and as much as possible to be able to exfil away from the crowd. It's a matter more of just not getting the crap beat out of you by a bunch of angry leftists that for some reason have decided that you're their target of the day. So that's more where my thought process goes with this. Again, the idea being here, when it comes to this being more than just carrying a pistol on you, because the other thing we have seen in a lot of areas like this, if you are in an area that is more in support of these rioters and protesters, and it's generally more left-leaning at a governmental level. The odds of you somehow getting in trouble for defending yourself from an angry crowd are much higher than in another area. And what I mean by this is, let's say you are doing your EDC, which you should be doing anyway, and you do employ your firearm. Now, granted, you have absolutely the right to defend your life. I am not arguing that in any way. But if you do, keep in mind, you might be in hostile territory with this one. You might be fighting a very uphill battle for a legal defense. Think about all the things that Kyle Rittenhouse had to go through whenever in the situation that he was through, which was a very clear-cut self-defense case. Now you have a scenario where you're in a crowd of angry people, things have escalated, you go to defend yourself like this. It might not turn out as well for you as you think it would be. So having other tools available to be able to avoid the situation, get out of the situation, evade the situation, or to be able to blend in just enough for you to get out might be more advantageous than just opening fire. So just something to think about. The fight you win is the one you never start. That's kind of the way I look at this. The best way to survive any situation is to not be in that situation. The best way to win a fight is to not get in the fight. Another thing I forgot to mention too is gloves. You might want to have some gloves with you. One, it could just be cold out. Two, also you want to make sure that you're not getting your hands on anything that you probably could potentially be in a bad environment. So I would try to go with a more nondescript color than camouflage. These are just happens to be the ones that I grabbed, but kind of a nondescript color that you could have with you. Also, another thing to think about too is a rain poncho. Now, the reason for this is obviously only if it makes sense in your environment. Like if it's June, it might not make sense to have one. But if you're kind of trying to blend in, one, it's generally cold out this time of year. It's generally wet out this time of year, depending on where you are. But also, if there are riots going on, if there are protests going on, tear gas is being deployed, OC sprays being deployed, things like this, it's much better to get that on a rain poncho that you can dispose of and get rid of than having that crap all over your clothes and having to wash that out and go through that process. That process sucks, getting that stuff on your clothes and having to go to work with that or coming home from work with that. So a rain poncho might not be a terrible idea, or at least a trash bag with a hole in it so you can walk through. And then with that, all of this too, putting it in a simple backpack that's nondescript, doesn't scream I'm a gun guy or I'm political in any way. Just something basic like this. So just a general school bag, so it doesn't just scream, hey, look at me, I'm a tactical guy. So the thought process behind this again was just, if I had to go through this scenario, if I had to go through that group of people, regardless, there's no way around it, I have to walk through this area to get to work, school, home, whatever, what would I want to have with me? There's probably some things I forgot. There's probably some things maybe I went overboard on. I'd love to hear from you guys as to what your thoughts are for something like this, what you might bring with you. Also, like I said, I did not include a PCC or a PDW or a small rifle or anything like that because I thought it might be a little overkill and kind of defeats the whole purpose of being blended in or gray man. Tell me your thoughts on that, on if you think that would actually be a better idea to have something like that with you or not. So with that, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.